Hello, this is Coach Wilson, and this is Unit 3, Day 8. Today's journal, what was Thomas Jefferson's greatest accomplishment as president, and how did it affect the country? I'd also like for you to answer, what was Thomas Jefferson's biggest blemish as the president, and how did it affect the country? Now, today's notes, we're going to be talking about the presidency of James Madison, and we're going to be getting closer to the end of this unit. And James Madison was our fourth president of the United States. He was a Democratic Republican, as was Jefferson, and he was Jefferson's Secretary of State. And as I mentioned in day 7, it was a stepping stone to the presidency. Unfortunately, he's kind of left with cleaning up Jefferson's mess following the Embargo Act. Now, Madison was getting a lot of pressure from a group known as the War Hawks. In 1810, congressional elections were held, and a group named the War Hawks were elected. These were all men that were born in the U.S. from the South and the West. And they were very aggressive. They wanted to push for more land, more expansionism, and really you're going to see a little bit of that imperialistic policy that grows in the late 1800s kind of pushed here. Now, two of the most important were Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun. John C. Calhoun with that lovely neck beard there will end up serving as a vice president to Andrew Jackson. Henry Clay will end up basically being nothing. But we'll talk about Henry Clay. He's actually a very important American figure. He's actually very involved in American politics, and I swear the man lives forever. They were all future leaders in the United States, and they're going to bring about big change. The War Hawks were very, very influential in the United States. Now, one of the issues that Madison has as a president is that in September of 1809, William H. Harrison, governor of the newly formed Indiana Territory, begins negotiating a treaty in which various American Indian leaders sold about 2.5 million acres to the United States. Unfortunately, this upset Native American leader Tecumseh, and mainly because now the Native Americans were being pushed even further west. So if you remember, all these Native Americans who were living freely before the Revolution are now being pushed further and further west as we go into the 1800s. Tecumseh began trying to organize tribes to work together against white settlers coming into Indiana. He told them to not sell their land. He told them not to drink the firewater, which is liquor. And he told them not to copy white customs. All right, so not to join in and assimilate with these new white settlers, but instead hold on to your culture, hold on to who you are. His brother, the Prophet, was also a very important figure for the Native American movement here in Indiana, and they tried to lead these Native Americans against these white settlers. Now, it's going to lead to the Battle of Tippecanoe, in which William H. Harrison is going to have to attack Tecumseh's village because they felt there was a threat from these Native Americans on the newly acquired Indiana Territory. The Indians lost the battle, and the Confederation fell apart almost instantly. Many Native Americans then fought on the side of the British when we get later on in the War of 1812. So the idea for the Native Americans here is that they're trying to hold on to whatever they can. It's also important that you remember the Battle of Tippecanoe. That will become William H. Harrison's nickname, Old Tippecanoe. Now, the New England states, they were very, very involved during this time with everything going on in the Northeast with Britain and, trying to deal with these forts that have not left the Ohio Territory yet. And so the big question comes up, why would the wealthy North not want to fight Britain? And there's a couple reasons here, all right? The Native Americans are on one front, and they're fighting William Harrison, and we've got all of that going on. Well, on top of that, you've got the British are still occupying those forts that they were supposed to leave that was in the Treaty of Paris in 1783. They still haven't left. It's been 30 years, and they still got forts there in the technically it's the Northwest, but they're in, the Ohio Territory. Let's put it that way. It's the easiest way I can describe it. So that's one issue. Then on top of that, New England has quite a bit of trade that comes in from Britain. It kind of goes back to the Embargo Act and the issues that Jefferson created. They don't want to hurt the economy. All right, so they're trying to avoid a war with Britain because they felt it would interrupt trade. And the Federalists also supported Britain, as we talked about when we talked about Federalists and Anti-Federalists. You also had a lot of population spreading to the west, which meant less, less involvement in the Northeast, which meant less trade, less commerce, less, industry. And so losing more population in the West also meant losing that along with political power, because your political power is going to lessen the more people, or strengthen the more people you have, and lessen the more people you lose. Now, the other issue here is that many of the war hawks in the South, they wanted not only to push Britain out, they also wanted to take over some of Canada because they thought it would be good farmland. This goes back to this idea of the Democratic Republicans push, which is they believed farming was ideal to the country's success. Now, the war hawks saw a war with Britain as a good thing because they would gain land and expand the political power of the United States. The South and the West called for help from the government with their Native American problem, and Madison, who didn't want war, was forced to buckle under the pressure and declare war against Britain because of the just push to get the British out of here, and the fact that the British are aiding these Native Americans, some from their forts in the Northwest, and they're trying to help them fight against the white settlers. There's just a lot of issues here, and Britain hasn't honored its treaty that they signed in 1783. Okay, and so you can read over this slide if you want, just some trouble spots leading to the War of 1812, kind of describes some of the issues here. And here are your 3 questions for the day. Please let me know if you're having any issues. Make sure you get your 3 vocabulary words down, and we will be picking up with day 9 and the final day of our notes next time. Talk to you soon.